The smell hit the hallway like a freight train. Within minutes, doors were slamming shut all over the floor. People were covering their noses. Someone even shouted from down the corridor asking if an animal had died somewhere in the building. And the best part? The one person responsible for months of misery suddenly couldn't keep her own door open anymore. All because of a package of forgotten chicken sitting in my refrigerator. If you've ever had a neighbor who made you question your sanity, you're going to love this story. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around, because today's revenge wasn't expensive, complicated, or illegal. It was simple. It was petty. And it worked perfectly. A few years ago, I lived in a fairly nice apartment building. Nothing fancy. Just one of those places where everyone mostly keeps to themselves. You smile politely in the elevator, maybe exchange a quick hello, and then continue living your separate lives. For the most part, it was peaceful. At least it was until my new neighbor moved in across the hall. The first week seemed normal. Then things started changing. Every single day, she'd leave her apartment door wide open. Not cracked open. Not slightly ajar. Wide open. At first I assumed she was moving furniture or carrying things inside. But no. This became her normal behavior. And with that open door came the music. Loud music. Constant music. The kind of music that wasn't just audible, it invaded your apartment. Bass vibrating through walls. Lyrics echoing down the hallway. The same songs over and over again. I remember sitting on my couch trying to watch television one evening when I realized I could hear her playlist more clearly than my own TV. That was the moment I thought, okay, this is becoming a problem. At first, I tried being reasonable. I introduced myself. I smiled. I explained that the sound carried throughout the hallway and asked if she could maybe close her door when she played music. She smiled back. Said she understood. Then closed the door. Problem solved, right? Wrong. 5 minutes later, the door was open again. Music blasting. As if our conversation had never happened. I told myself maybe she forgot. Maybe it was an accident. But after days turned into weeks, it became obvious she simply didn't care. The hallway became her personal concert venue. Every time I left my apartment, there it was. Boom. 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 The bass. Every morning. Every afternoon. Every evening. Sometimes she'd even sing along. Loudly. Badly. The worst part wasn't the music itself. It was the complete disregard. Everyone else in the building understood basic courtesy. She acted like the entire floor existed solely for her convenience. I started noticing other neighbors getting irritated too. People would walk past rolling their eyes. Some would shut their own doors harder than necessary. Others would mutter complaints under their breath. But nobody wanted confrontation. Including me. So I tried the polite route again. One afternoon I knocked on her open door. The music was so loud she didn't hear me. I had to wave. She paused the song. I politely asked if she could lower the volume or close the door. Again. She nodded. Again. And once more, nothing changed. A few days later I reported the issue to building management. They said they'd talk to her. For about 48 hours things improved. Then she went right back to her old habits. At that point, frustration started becoming resentment. Every day felt like a test of patience. I couldn't enjoy quiet. I couldn't relax after work. Even simple activities became annoying because there was always a soundtrack I never asked for blasting from across the hall. Then came the turning point. One Friday afternoon, I was cleaning out my refrigerator. You know that moment when you find something shoved behind everything else and instantly regret opening the container? Yeah. That happened. It was chicken. Old chicken. Very old chicken. Past its expiration date. Way past. The second I cracked the package open, I nearly dropped it. The smell was horrifying. It was aggressive. The kind of smell that doesn't politely enter your nose. It attacks. I immediately wrapped it back up and headed for the trash. And then a thought appeared. One glorious thought. I stopped walking. I looked at the chicken. Then I looked toward the hallway. Then I looked at my neighbor's apartment. Her door was open. Music blasting. Again. I checked the time. Friday afternoon. And that's when I remembered something important. The maintenance staff didn't remove the hallway trash until Monday morning. A smile slowly appeared on my face. For months, I'd been asking for basic consideration. For months, she'd ignored everyone. Now I had an opportunity. And nature had provided the weapon. The hallway had a communal garbage bin positioned about 10 feet from her door. Normally, it wasn't a big deal. People tossed small bags in there until staff emptied it. But today that bin was about to become a biological warfare experiment. I carefully deposited the chicken into the trash can. Then I walked back into my apartment, closed my door, and waited. At first nothing happened. 10 minutes passed. 20 minutes. Then it began. The odor started spreading through the hallway. Slowly. Relentlessly. Like an invisible cloud of punishment. Even from inside my apartment I could smell it. And I knew exactly what was waiting outside. I opened my door slightly. The hallway smelled unbelievable. Imagine rotten eggs mixed with garbage and left in the sun for a month. Then multiply that by 10. It was magnificent. The music across the hall was still playing. For now. About 15 minutes later, I heard movement. My neighbor stepped into the hallway. There was a brief silence. Then came the reaction. What is that smell? I nearly laughed out loud. A door slammed. Her door. The same door she'd refused to keep closed for months. Suddenly, it wasn't staying open anymore. Funny how that works. The music became muffled. Barely audible. For the first time in ages, the hallway was peaceful. But the story gets even better. Because the smell didn't disappear. Not on Saturday. Not on Sunday. The heat of the hallway seemed to make everything worse. Every hour the odor became more powerful. Neighbors started hurrying through the corridor. People covered their noses. The entire floor suffered. Including me. But unlike everyone else, I knew there was an endgame. And it was worth it. Meanwhile, my neighbor never opened her door. Not once. Whenever she needed to leave, she'd crack it open just enough to squeeze through before shutting it immediately. The woman who had treated the hallway like her personal living room suddenly wanted nothing to do with it. By Sunday evening, I was struggling not to laugh every time I heard her quickly dart in and out of her apartment. She had been defeated by a package of chicken. Months of complaints had failed. Management had failed. Politeness had failed. Rotting poultry succeeded. Monday morning finally arrived. Maintenance emptied the garbage. The smell vanished. The hallway returned to normal. But something else changed too. My neighbor's behavior. Her door stayed closed. Day after day. Week after week. No more hallway concerts. No more bass shaking walls. No more music echoing through the building. It was over. One afternoon I passed her in the hallway. She looked annoyed. Almost suspicious. Like she knew someone had somehow orchestrated her defeat. But she couldn't prove anything. I simply smiled politely and continued walking. Inside, though, I was celebrating. Not because I had hurt anyone. Not because I had caused drama. But because after months of disrespect, the problem was finally solved. And it had been solved in the most ridiculously satisfying way imaginable. Sometimes revenge isn't about grand schemes or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it's about giving people a tiny taste of the inconvenience they've been forcing onto everyone else. Funny enough, the lesson wasn't taught through words. It was taught through consequences. And apparently, through rotten chicken. If this revenge story made you smile, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible Reddit revenge stories. And tell us in the comments, what's the pettiest revenge you've ever seen actually work? We read every comment, and your story might even appear in a future video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.